Sup nerds, I'm Tom,
And I'm Aaron.
and we're taking a look at the reprint of Manhattan. This is an older game by whoever, we don't know, but the most recent edition by Foxmind Games. Boom.
So Manhattan is an abstract game where you're building buildings in Manhattan.
Yeah, like the different boroughs, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It's just very abstract in the way that depending on where you're sitting around the table, the cards will tell you where you can build. So every card is different to a different player. If you're sitting here and you have the center card, that's the same for all players. But having like the top left card
is the bottom left or bottom right for me.
Yeah, so like it really, depending where you're sitting, is how your action movement cards will allow you to build.
And you're playing wherever you want that the card dictates. There's 6 different areas that you can put it down in, so you can play like on top of players and be really cutthroat and stuff. The main way, I guess, like at least the rules say, it teaches you like the main game is a 4-player game. Then with 3 players do this and 2 players do this. I actually still haven't played it as 4 players. I've only played it 3 and 2 because I've actually really liked it as a 2-player game. It's super cutthroat, and actually, even furthermore, I played it wrong the first time I was playing it as a 2-player game. Because in a 2-player game, normally you have a color. I'm the blue player, and I'm going to play my blue pieces. But in the rules, it says that you have 2 colors, and I was thinking that it was that you have 2 colors, but you just treat it as 1 color, right? Like, these are my pieces, your pieces, just so that way we have more pieces available to us, more 4s and 3s.
Which they do in other games.
Yeah, true. In other games, you would have, in other versions, you would have 6 pieces and whatever. Other versions, other player counts. But then we played it with Aaron. Corrected me because Aaron's the freaking rule lawyer
I'm
over
like,
here.
this doesn't make sense. Let me look at.
But you really are supposed to play it to where you control 2 different colors, and in theory, you could be fighting yourself for control with one color versus the other.
Which is really interesting because it's me versus you. Instead of I'm just fighting for this borough and you're fighting for it as well. I can be fighting for it with yellow and fighting for it with orange while you're only fighting for it with one color. So it can like swing back and forth between control a little more often.
A little less often, I would think. Because
it's just depending on how you play your card.
Well, but think about it. Like there was the one where, like right here, where I had this is the prime example. I had blue here, and then you had your orange, and then I put a blue there, and then you covered it with a yellow instead of an orange. If you had covered it with an orange, that would have swung to your control. But you were able to swing it over to neutral with that move.
And then the next player who would place there would instantly gain control of it again.
Right.
So like it can just kind of jump back around depending on how things go and what cards you have, and if you can actually play on top of somebody depending on the height of it. Because if somebody builds a 4-story building and then you're like, oh, I only have my 2-story pieces this round, I'm not going to be able to build over top. So there is a lot of kind of pre-planning, but you don't even know what you're going to have for the entire turn because you play a card, you draw a new card, and you can kind of just hope that maybe I can build over top of him at the end of this round.
Yeah, there is an awful lot of luck in the card play, but at the same time, there are so many options
There's 6.
with the 6 different. So you're really only like wishing to top deck the card you need for one specific thing. Like if you're fighting over one borough or if you're fighting over tallest building. Because there's a couple different times when you score tallest building, how many buildings you have, and whoever has control of these of each of these 6 areas. And that's the way that the points are divvied out. So the points are divvied out not that much differently. Like no one thing is super swingy. You know what I mean? It's not like, he got tallest building, so oh no, what am I going to do? It's 3 points versus 1 point for every building I have.
So that building is essentially worth 4 points instead of just the 1.
Well, 4 points for tallest building. Yeah, that's true. And 6 points if it's the only building in that borough. Yeah. So, but then even then, 6 points isn't that swingy. If I just put out if I put out 4 buildings and control 1 borough with it, that's 6 points right there too. So it felt, at least I think it felt kind of tight. You know what I mean? There was no like, oh, he did that one move, so what am I gonna do?
Oh no, you definitely can get points back by kind of spreading out or concentrating, like one or the other. Like you if you're going to spread out, make sure you keep spreading out and take over as much territory as you can so you get a bunch of little points. Or if you're going to, concentrate on one area and try and go for tallest building, make sure you're also like locking down at least one of the territories and getting the territory bonus as well.
And also, the turn order matters a lot too, because going last is a big benefit, right? So like, not revealing your hand too early. Like, if you have control of tallest building, but I have a card that can put my piece on tallest building, especially if I only have one of that card, right? Because you could have multiple cards of the same area. So I could be like, oh, I'm just going to play that, and if he plays on top of me, I'll play right back on top of me again. But like that's got to be like the last move I do. I'm going to hold it to the last thing, and boom, now I have control of tallest. But boom,
And you're hoping that I don't just go, maybe I should secure my spot there.
That's true. That there you can have so much of one color there that it's impossible for me to play on top of it.
Because in the last game we played, there was actually like a couple turns before the end. I was like, maybe I should secure this building. I threw down a piece, and then you're like, okay, well I'm gonna throw down a piece and I beat you. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna throw down a piece on this other building that wasn't even the tallest, and now it is the tallest. So like, it's just
changing the tallest building is a good strategy, but
it's hard to pull off. Too.
It's hard to because you can like see it coming.
You're like,
right?
That building's getting pretty tall.
Yeah, and I mean you can if you in your opening hand have two of the same things, two of the same areas. You could just play both of them
just
lock in 2 4s or something. Like that's 8 right there. Not only am I guaranteed can you not play on top of that, but it would be a while before there would be another tallest building that would be higher than that. So we were just saying that there aren't a lot of swinging plays, but maybe those could work. But those are kind of hard to pull off. I had said earlier that I had played 2-player wrong, kind of. I was treating both colors as just one color. And I really didn't think that was all that different from playing it the correct way. Now, granted, there could be scenarios by which it does make a big difference. But like even over here, if you can see, this is like purple and yellow, and over here, blue and orange, blue and orange, blue and orange. Like we at least kept it that same way. We tried not to, cross our own path a little bit. Like we naturally gravitated that way. So I would almost say if you want to try playing it where you consider it one color, I thought it was still fun. I didn't see any problem with it. It made total sense to me. I liked it.
If everybody's playing by the same rules, then it's
not a problem.
My only real complaint with this game is when you're looking at some of these buildings, especially the 3s and the 4s, when they're already stacked on top of other buildings, it can be kind of hard to tell what size they are. So you're like, can I build on top of this? He's got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay, and I have 4. Like, there's a lot of like really looking at the pieces instead of like it being very clear.
Especially since they set in on each other. Like this one they have like that little lip and that goes in. So like when you're looking through, they're see-through.
They're translucent. Yeah. So yeah, you see like it kind of obscures with the other colors. So like, but I do like the presentation is awesome. Though looking at them, you're like, wow, that's cool. They're like see-through. They're very like psychedelic. It goes with like all of the colors that are going on. Like I like it. It's just. When you're playing it, it can be a little tough. Like it's not a quick glance. Like that's definitely a pawn and that's definitely a king. Like it's not that drastic of a difference. You're like, that pawn's a little taller than that one.
Like I have so much fun with a game that they have to like try to find the negatives. Well, this was an issue. Like the only other thing I didn't like is I think the insert is nice. Could have been better. But it doesn't hold sleeve cards. And these cards, it's almost like a weird thing to complain about, but these cards are so thick that they almost didn't fit into these sleeves. You had to get mini Euro sleeves, and they were like squeezed in there.
So I can only think of one other abstract game that I've played before where depending on where you're sitting actually has an effect on like the positioning of your cards. The World of Smog on Her Majesty's Service is a Cool Mini or Not game that I played a while back. It's couple years old. You had cards that gave you your location of where your secret objective was, and depending where you're sitting. So if I'm looking at it, it says dead center. It's like right there. But if I was sitting to the seat to the left, it would be like, oh, now it's over here. It really like changes things because there's also cards like shifted the board. So now all of a sudden I'm still looking the same spot. So now my spot changed over here. In this game, the strategy isn't as complex as that with like spinning the board and stuff. So like at least the cards you have in your hand when you're strategizing with them aren't gonna change. So you're like, okay, I can put in this top of this one or top of that one or top of this one. And all of a sudden it turns like, oh no, now that would have to be a side card, but you can't play your card sideways or upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get your card, you're gonna start strategizing like where do I want to put this, and with there being 6 different areas to put them in, there's a lot of strategy that I really like in this game, and I think it works really well.
But I did like how you said the idea about spinning the board. What if you did that between every round? Like you either spun the board or spun seats, or spun the board and the seats.
Oh man, it's like yeah, because
Right,
then like
move
the
it clockwise
strategy,
and then we move us clockwise at the same time. So it's like it's the same thing, but like I'm looking at it from a different side of the table.
I could see an expansion coming out where you could make it a little more cutthroat with things like that, like
Yeah, like a second deck from. How would that work?
like an event deck.
An event deck.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
'Cause there was-
Plague on blue. All blue buildings are gone.
You could have something like everybody who has the shortest building gets to add another building on top of it, or there's always room for adding things to games if you want to add more randomness to it.
But even as is, you can still house rule it to a rotating. Just because like I can hold cards in my hand from round to round. Bottom right is tallest building. I want to make sure, I keep that. So you could house rule it where you just rotate it between every round, or you could house rule it where in a 2-player game,
Or you could roll a dice to see which way it rolls, like the Thanos Rising game. Overall, I give it 2 thumbs up. I like it a lot.
Yep. Overall, I'm going to agree with Aaron. Tons of fun, really great production quality, with the exception of the minor complaints that we had. And now, if you have been watching us for a while, you would know historically I tend to say that I don't really care for abstract games, but if they have a little bit of a theme on it, I'm kind of okay with it. But I think I should need to modify that to say it's not so much that I don't like abstract games, I just don't like chess-like games. I don't like chess or the Duke or like, Onitama or any of those games where it's like this piece can move like this and this piece can move like that, or, so maybe that's more my issue with it.
And I think that this is area control makes it a lot better because we like a lot of area control games to begin with.
We can wrap our head around that.
There's just not rolling dice to battle over the areas. It's just like I have a card, I can put it on top of yours.
Yeah, it's like just a lot of deterministic area control combat, so to speak.
Yeah.
In a way.
Wrap your head around that.
Yeah, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, we're going to put a purchase link to this edition of Manhattan in the description box down below.
And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. See you on the review board.
You went so slow.
I know.